Welcome back to the Retro Horror Academy. My name is Daniel Richardson, and this episode we're going to be looking at the year in horror 1928. Now, before I get started, I want to apologize. So, last episode, 1927, I said, there was no real stories or movies to talk about except for the ones we were reviewing, but that wasn't true. In fact, there is a very famous lost film, arguably the most famous lost horror film, period, that came from 1927, and that film is London After Midnight with Lon Chaney. And forgot to mention it, and I apologize. Of course, that thing has been lost because, or due to the fire at Universal, wiped out numerous, old films. Unfortunately, this being one of them. So we've all seen the pictures of Lon Chaney and his vampire makeup or what have you. I apologize. I did not, didn't talk about that one, and I apologize. So, however, 1928, same kind of deal. There is really nothing to talk about in terms of horror except for these movies. There are 5 of them we're going to be discussing tonight. And we'll get into those 5. However, first I need to mention that this will be the last year of the decade for horror films. Nothing came out in 1929, or nothing substantial. At least nothing I could find. Maybe there may have been some lost films as well, but nothing for 1929 or 1930. We don't have another year until 1931. However, there will be episodes on 1929 and 1930, as I will be inducting horror icons into our prestigious Horror Hall of Fame. So, there'll still be many episodes coming out for both those years. So, stay on the lookout for them. So, with all that out of the way, let's get to 1928. But you know what I like to do first, before we get into the actual movies, we like to induct somebody into our Hall of Fame. So this person we're going to be inducting, for the most part, it's been writers, with the exception of George Mealis, of course, the very first inductee. But the other ones have all been writers, of the horror genre, well before movies. So, all the, these novelists, if you will. However, we got ourselves a director/actor, probably more known as an actor, maybe. Well, I guess it depends, which side of the coin you like with this guy. I am talking about Paul Wergner, best known on the directing side for directed The Student of Prague back in 1913, and then of course the Gollum trilogy. We've only covered one of them on this show because the first one is completely lost. The second one is mostly lost except for a reel. The third one's the only one that's fully intact, but according to most people, that was the one that, that's the big one. That's the main one anyways. And then, of course, on the acting side, in addition to playing the Gollum, or the Clay Man, or whatever you want to call him, in the Gollum trilogy. And I believe he also starred in, if I'm not mistaken, in The Student of Prague. Either way, he would go on to play the Magician. And he's in one of the films that we're going to talk about tonight. Yes, Mr. Wergner, again, his biggest accomplishment may have been the Gollum, but I think he's a really good actor from this era. I mean, he's no Lon Chaney, and I'm not going to pretend like he is, but I just feel like he has this horror presence about him. He just looks dark and menacing. He has an air of menace, if you will. As I was doing my research for Magician, I saw that a lot of the critics of the time, the contemporary critics, kind of slammed his performance, and I totally disagree. When I saw The Magician, I thought he was honestly the best thing going in that film. And I still stand by that. So, Mr. Paul Wergner, you may enter the hallowed halls of our Horror Hall of Fame. So you're in good company. So there you go. There is your 1928 Horror Hall of Fame inductee. So let's get on to the movie, shall we? We're going to start things off with number 5, movie called The Ape. It is made right here in America. Basic plot is this ape who is supposed to be tame, breaks out of the zoo, and goes on a crazy rampage. This thing would be remade a few years later, and it's probably for the best because when this movie came out, it was a critical and commercial failure. In fact, the only thing it's really known for is the lead actress, Gladys something. It was like her final film, and that's really the only thing that's kind of stands out about this film. Probably less said about the better. Currently has a 4.5 on IMDb, so there you go. So we'll move right along to number 4, and I'm talking about The Last Warning. Basically, what happens is there's an accident during a stage production, and it shuts down the entire theater house. But 5 years later, they decide to open it up. And I'm going to be by accident. Someone dies on stage, right? And so 5 years later, they decide to reopen this playhouse, whatever you call those, theaters, I guess theaters. And they decide to bring back the old cast members. Of course, they received the last warning not to do this. So this is directed by Paul Lenny, which actually this is one of 2 films he would direct this year. This guy is prolific as fuck. So anyways, The Last Warning, Paul Lenny did almost as a follow-up to The Cat and the Canary, which I was, big fan of from the previous year. And so he was wanting to kind of basically capitalize on that and make this the companion piece to that film. This is based on another stage play, which may have been based on a novel. I'm honestly not completely sure on the specifics there. But either way, The Last Warning, he brought back a lot of the same actors and actresses from the previous one. And it plays out pretty much the same. It's another kind of whodunit, Scooby-Doo kind of, thing. I think the biggest problem here, and this is not just me, this is pretty much what all the people have said, both contemporary and the current retroactive reviewers today, that his style's definitely there, and I will say that I love, like, this dude's doing camera work and tricks and moves that like no one has ever seen at this time. And I'll tell you right now, as far as directing goes, I gotta say Paul Lenny's probably my favorite from this era. Like, seriously, I just love the way he shoots everything. I don't know, I think it's just it's very good. It's very impressive for back then. The big problem here is it's the plot, it's the script. Everything just kind of feels rushed here. Like, they instantly just go one scene to another. Like in the other one, I don't know, there was the same amount of characters. You had all these different moving parts and little plots and subplots and, all these characters and everything. And he found a way to make it work then, but for some reason in this one, my God, it just jumps all over the place. And it just seems like it's going really fast. Like, there's no time to really stop and be like, what the hell's going on? The Last Warning wasn't nearly as huge in this as I was the previous film. I think directing-wise and the look of it, it looks better than The Cat and the Canary. But yeah, as far as the story goes, I'm not too huge on this. This would get remade a couple of times. One was kind of faithful to it, but the other one, I think they just kind of took the name only and ran through the rest. But this was another in the Universal catalog. Not nearly as much comedy in this one as there was in The Cat and the Canary. They kind of played this one a little bit more straight, but there's still, few moments of ha-has and what have you. I will say this one also, it's a mystery, and it's a pretty good one. I had no clue who the fuck was the killer, if you will, the Phantom of the theater. It does feel very Phantom of the Opera-ish, though, and I think that may be another reason that it kind of falls short, because you could draw a lot of comparisons between this and the Phantom of the Opera. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, I think some of the sets here was reused from the Phantom of the Opera, so there you have that. This movie currently has a 6.9 on IMDb, and it ranks number 4 for us here at the Academy. So at number 3, I'm gonna butcher the name of this, Alran, fucking Daughter of Destiny is the alternate title here. Alran, I think is how you pronounce it, though. I'm gonna stick with that. But either way, so this was a German film. I'm blanking on the guy's name, like Henrik Heinking. I don't know. Dude did a film a while back. Let me check my notes, see if I got it here. He did yeah, thought I had it here. Guess I didn't. Doesn't matter. He did a movie a while back ago. He was one of these, German horror directors, German expression and all that kind of stuff. The main plot here is this professor, scientist, whatever you want to call him, played by Paul Werner. There you go. Our Hall of Famer's back at it again. He is trying to, looking at it from a morality standpoint, he's trying to see, could a killer's genes, affect somebody without them really knowing it? Can they pass on their traits without knowing it? And so what he does is he gets the semen from a hanged prisoner and he injects it into a prostitute and adopts the child. It's a young girl, and basically raises her as his own. However, when she grows up, she becomes a bit of a whore. I'm not sure if that's scientifically proven or not. Who knows? But either way, that's the basis of this movie. This thing will get remade several more times. But a lot of people kind of go back to this one as being the kind of be-all, end-all of all the films. It stars, in addition to Paul Werner, it has, what was her name? Bridget Helm. She was from Metropolis. And, yeah, looks really fucking hot in this thing. I know, I guess she's she's dead now, but, for being back in 1928, oh man, what a looker. Yeah, and a lot of people will agree. A lot of people say, this is the most erotic portrayal of the character in any of the, future installments or whatever. So there you have it. Yeah, honestly, wasn't as huge on this one. I know I just gave props to Paul Werner and everything, and he was, he's really good in this. But yeah, personally, I would have put The Last Warning above this one, but that's just me personally. Either way, though, there you go. It currently has a 6.2 on IMDb. So yeah, even people on IMDb have given this one a lesser whatever. But yeah, there you have it. Number 3, winner of the Bronze Skull. Forgot to mention that. Sorry. Yeah. Ranu. Fuck me. All right, going on to number 2, shall we? And this one, honestly, I think a lot of people are going to argue that this should have been the first one. A part of me kind of agrees. I don't know. The Last Warning wasn't that. I don't know. It's a toss-up between The Last Warning and this one. But anyways, I'm talking about The Man Who Laughs. This is made here in America as well. Also directed by Paul Lenny. The story talks about basically it's like a band of gypsies who, kind of rebelling against the king. And he gets the leader and basically kills the leader. And then takes his son and visibly mutates his face. Gives him this forever smile, if you will. I don't know how the fuck that would even work, but he does it. Gives him this permagrin. And yeah, this one actually plays less like horror. And that's maybe why I personally voted it down. I think that's why the Academy may have as well. Because it really, there's really nothing horror about this. It definitely feels more drama and even more romance, I guess. So this one was actually slated to be done previously. After The Hunchback of Notre Dame, or Dame, depending, I guess, where you from and pronounce it. At that point, like I said before, Lon Chaney and the author of Hunchback, Victor Hugo, became household names, and now they're trying to buy up other properties. The funny thing is, The Man Who Laughs was never really a huge book from Victor Hugo, so it's kind of an odd gamble, but they picked it up, and it was slated to be with Lon Chaney. And you could definitely tell this would have been a perfect Lon Chaney film, because it's like his perfect or his character to play. It literally is the sympathetic man with a deformity. He's played this so many times with The Penalty, and then we go back to Hunchback and Phantom of the Opera, obviously, The Unknown, which that one, less sympathetic, I guess, but still, playing a man, deformed. But, yeah, here, this screams Lon Chaney. So anyways, somehow it fell through, and I'm not sure exactly what happened, but either way, Lon Chaney pulled out, but then he would turn around and do Phantom of the Opera instead. So this thing kind of got put on the shelf. But after Paul Lenny did The Cat and the Canary, I'm not sure which came first, if it was Last Warning or The Man Who Laughs. But either way, because of that, The Cat and the Canary, Paul Lenny was given this one. However, Lon Chaney was busy doing something else, so they went ahead and told him to recast, and they got Conrad Veidt. I can never say this dude's name right. I need to watch more documentaries where people talk about this guy so I can get the pronunciation of half the shit. Anyways, last scene as Caesar, and or not last scene, but probably most notable for being Caesar and the cabinet of Dr. Caligari. Of course, we would also get my notes out here. He'd also go on to play in the. Oh shit! I'm blanking on what else he did. Fuck it. Moving on. My notes are shit right now. I had them all stacked up and they're all gone. Anyways, do this on the cuff, guys. I'm doing this on the cuff, just on the fly. But anyway, so he got him to Conrad Veidt to play the lead. We got Mary Philbin, who was the lead actress in the Phantom of the Opera. She's the lead in this one, playing his love interest. And a lot of people from this movie would go on and do pretty good stuff. The guy who did the set design, I believe, would go on and do like Frankenstein, a lot of the Universal monster stuff. And Jack Pierce, the makeup artist, he actually did the face appliance for Conrad Veidt, the grin, if you will. And this one, huge hit, big box office. People really liked it, praised it. But it's kind of the same vein as The Unknown, where everybody was just like, well, it's kind of grotesque and it's dark subject matter. And it's like, it really isn't. Like, I don't know, I put this in the vein. I mean, maybe because of the look, it does look a little creepy when you see the Man Who Laughs, the grinning look that Conrad Veidt has. So, I mean, I guess in that instance, I guess it can be a little bit, I guess for its time, but it really isn't that dark or disturbing at all. And again, beat-wise, it plays a lot like a Hunchback or a Phantom of the Opera kind of thing, where, this guy, because of deformity, he just wants to be loved and not looked at as a freak, even though his girlfriend is blind. For whatever reason, he just doesn't feel worthy of her love. I don't know. It's all right. This movie just, to me, it just fell flat. I think because it was just, again, another kind of melodrama as opposed to... And that's the thing I really kind of like, The Unknown was kind of the same thing. I felt like it was less horror and more just soapy, melodramatic drama. And this one has, overdoses on the romance for sure. It is what it is for me personally. This would also, another big side note here, this would go on to inspire the look of the Joker. And of course, it varies on who was inspired, whether if it was Bob Kane or Bill Finger or some other dude who was writing or drawing for it. But either way, when they saw this movie, just the look of this guy inspired them to make the Joker with the permanent grin on his face. And I mean, it does work. It does look creepy AF. This is another one that's been remade a couple of times, later on down the road. But again, no one's going to top the original. This one actually has a 7.7 on IMDb, and it has a 100% Rotten Tomato score or ranking or rating or whatever you want to call it. So there you have it. It's our Silver Skull winner, The Man Who Laughs #2. So that means there's only one film left from 1928. We're looking to France this time, and that movie is The Fall of the House of Usher. Edgar Allan Poe, another Hall of Famer, wrote this. And the basic plot here is this guy goes to the mansion, the House of Usher, if you will, to check in on his friend. And his friend is obsessively painting a portrait of his wife. However, the portrait of his wife, it's like the more he puts into the painting, the sicker she gets. And it's almost as if maybe it's taking her life force and going into this picture. This thing, I have to say, it's, very artsy. The look of the film looks great, actually. I will say that. Again, I can't explain it. There's just certain shots in here that just look more real. I can't explain. all these films we've been watching, it's like you're watching it on an old camera. Something, but there's some camera movement and some camera shots in here. It just looks more clear, more almost documentary style. That I don't know if this makes sense. I may just be rambling here. It had a different vibe to it, different look. It looked real. Like I was looking through a window into this film. That's what it means. If that makes any sense. I just feel like this movie had a more realistic look to it. Stylistically, this thing top notch. And even, I guess at the time, this thing had so many cuts in it, like over 100 plus cuts, which is almost unheard of in these old movies. So definitely leading the way here. And so a lot of people kind of said that this was a very experimental / art house film. And I guess in that regard, it kind of is. And maybe it was viewed like that back then. This just seems like an old Gothic silent film, silent film to me. And beyond that, the big story behind the scenes was, I guess, the director and the writer wrote this thing together, and I guess they clashed because, I guess, in the original short story by Edgar Allan Poe, the husband and wife were actually, I don't know if it was also or whatever, but they were brother and sister. And so I guess there was kind of this incest angle going on here, and this director was like, no, and the writer's like, yes. And so basically the writer walked off, and the director got his way, and they cut out the incest angle altogether. Even with the incest angle taken out, a lot of people have said like this is actually the best adaptation of The Fall of the House of Usher, and one of the best Poe adaptations, period. One of. I know there's several others out there we haven't gotten to yet. We will. But, Fall of the House of Usher, though, big time Poe favorite, if you will. For me personally, I don't know. There's just a lot of nothing. And I mean, it's beautiful photography, but it is just a lot of, like, characters walking down corridors and just lots of silence, and the music just kind of plays. Now, I don't know if the music I was listening to was the original or not. I don't think it was, actually. I think I got like a version that had like a different score added on afterwards or whatever. But it was just a lot of just characters sitting there and listening to the wind, listening to noises. The only thing I will say, it's very confusing at the end, and I'm spoiling this. I'm sorry, because this is 1920 so I'll go ahead and drop it. If you don't want to hear spoilers, just go ahead and click off, because you already know it's the number one film, and I'm kind of on the bubble. I think, honestly, for me personally, man, either The Last Warning or The Man Who Laughed should be number one. But the Fall of the House of Usher, it's so slow, but the ending's so fucking bonkers because it's trying. I mean, I don't know. I guess his wife or whatever. Like when she finally does die, but it's almost like the painting's alive, and at the end, the wife just comes back to life and that's it. Like she crawls out of her tomb or whatever. Like there's a tomb in an island in a cave somewhere, and somehow she comes back and walks up to the mansion. And in the end, the whole place catches fire. But the friend and the husband, they confront the dead wife, and then they all get out together of the burning house, and it's just the end. Like it's not even like, I don't know. I figure at the end they'd look at her and she'd decompose. Like The Terror. I don't know if anybody remembers The Terror with Jack Nicholson and Boris Karloff. By this kind of figure they look at her and she'd be decomposed, or she was a ghost the whole time and she saved him or whatever. But it's like, no. They all just survive at the end, and you're like, so did she come back? Was she the girl from the painting? Because you do see her in the painting move from time to time. But again, this is her crawling out of the tomb. So this is like a reanimated corpse. And either she wasn't dead when they put her in, and she just was asleep and then was able to like push herself out. I don't know. And I think that's probably one of the things that bugs me the most about this movie. Just the ending's so fucking weird. But either way, like I said, this thing was a huge hit. Is considered an all-time classic. It currently has a 7.3 on IMDb and also has a 100% Rotten Tomatoes score. So there you have it. The Fall of the House of Usher, the winner of the Golden Skull Award and the number one horror film of 1928. So there you guys have it. For a quick recap of everything, we inducted Paul Wergner into the Horror Hall of Fame. And then we had number 5, The Ape. Number 4, The Last Warning. At number 3, winner of the Bronze Skull, it's Auron. I will never get that right. At number 2, winner of the Silver Skull Award, The Man Who Laughs. And at number 1, winner of the Golden Skull Award, The Fall of the House of Usher. So thank you guys for joining me. Tune in next time Like I said, it'll be 1929. We're going to officially close out the decade. And again, it'll be a short episode because we're just going to do an induction of the Hall of Fame, and that is it. But still tune in, find out who also is going to be added to the Hall of Fame. That's all I have, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Again, anything we appreciate. We're getting lots of views on this show. I'm surprised this show caught on like it did, just because we're talking about old silent films from almost 100 years ago, in some cases over 100 years ago. So again, I'm glad this found an audience. So yes, please share, subscribe, all that shit you do on YouTube. Spread the word, get other people interested in this. I'd really appreciate it. So on behalf of the Retro Horror Academy, my name's Daniel Richardson, and you're dismissed.